Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Bonney, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Thursday, June 12th. The global stage is sending a cautious sentiment across Wall Street this morning. We are coming off a down day yesterday after all three major indices closed lower during regular trading. The Dow did end essentially flat, off by only 1 point. The S&P 500 gave up 16 points, or just more than 1/4%. The Nasdaq shed 99 points, or 0.5%. Bill, let's get into Thursday's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, Jess. Good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. We're down 0.5%, 0.50%. Not good. We're moving lower, and the market's really reacting to this heightened level of geopolitical tensions and uncertainty over trade tariff policies. I mean, there are multiple media reports out today that are indicate that Israel's preparing for a possible military strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, and potentially could happen within days. But I will have to point out that there are high-level meetings between Israeli officials and U.S. envoys. They're taking place, before Sunday's talks between the U.S. and Iran over over their nuclear facilities. So it's unlikely that a strike would happen prior to those talks happening, but after that, next week, anything's possible. Then there's President Trump. He came out there and he said yesterday after the market closed that he's sending out tariff letters within the next 2 weeks. But on the flip side, he did acknowledge that the deadline could be pushed back, which creates market uncertainty over the timing and the scope of these new trade measures. What else we got here? BNTX, they're buying CureVac in a $1.25 billion deal. Oh, that 11-year-old Boeing plane, it's a 787 crashed in India. It's sending Boeing shares lower. Trump backers are calling for a boycott of Walmart after a Walmart family member sponsored ads on No King's Day in several newspapers. On the earnings front, got Oracle. Hey, Oracle's moving higher after their earnings release. And after the bell today, you get ticker RH and Adobe. They'll be reporting. So, that's kind of positive. Then we're taking a look over in Europe. And, the DAX is getting hit. It's down over 1%, or 243 points. And a lot of it is due to the trade tariff uncertainty and the geopolitical tensions. FTSE has turned positive. It's up 0.13%. Now, FTSE's positive mainly because, the GDP came in, lower than expected with a contraction of 0.3% in April. This raises concerns for the economy, which makes it more likely that the Bank of England will do a rate cut when they meet next. So, that's kind of an inverse relationship as rate cuts when you get bad economic data coming in. And the CAC in Paris is down, 0.6%. It's the EU-US trade talks. They're still going on. That national sales tax, that VAT tax for the in the EU, the U.S. calls it a tariff. They call it a sales tax because everybody's hit by it. But it's a point of concern. But if they're willing to kind of do more business and deals with the U.S., then it should be overlooked and a deal could still get done. Then we're turning our attention over to Asia. And Asia also was weak across the board, essentially. I mean, you got the Nikkei dropping 248 points, or 0.65%. Autos are weak. Electronic stocks are weak. Tech stocks are weak. The yen was a little stronger. These renewed tariff threats from Trump was caused a little weakness there. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng dropped 331 points. That's 1.36%. And that's about tech restrictions. The veil on the tech restrictions really wasn't lifted. So it's very unclear if the U.S. is going to be lifting any sanctions on semiconductors to China. So that is a concern. And then you look at the Shanghai market. I mean, it was higher. It was flat to higher. It was up 0.01%. The trade deal, though affirmed in principle by both sides, it still remains fragile. I mean, as neither one of the country's leaders has signed off on it yet, so it seems more like a temporary truce than a comprehensive solution. So we got to keep an eye on that. And then we're turning our attention to oil this morning, and oil's down, 1.6 over 1.6%. I mean, you got WTI trading at $67 a barrel. That's down 1.69%. You got Brent trading at $68.65. That's down 1.61%. Listen, we got that EIA report showed a larger than expected drop in crude inventories. That was down 3.6 million barrels for the week ending June 6th. That's normally bullish. But Trump's tariff rhetoric, it's weighing on oil prices. So that's really the concern. And the trade deal, we're still looking for clarity on it. So, when you start talking about sending letters out, that's going to weigh on oil prices, which are a little lofty right now, considering the fact that OPEC's going to be kicking up the supply in the near term. But that's what I have for you in terms of morning market report, Emily.
And Bill, the benefit of hearing that morning market report from you first is that we're really getting the big picture here as geopolitical tensions send waves through Wall Street, along with political issues right here on U.S. soil. These are things to keep in mind while we also keep track of a lot of other news, data, and information. There are more headlines underneath in things like earnings action, economic events, and other corporate headlines. And you keep track of all of it because you have NewsWare. So we're going to get through all of that on today's show. Let's get first to earnings action. Bill, what is going on there?
Got to talk about Oracle, ticker ORCL, Oscar, Richard, Charlie, Larry. Let's first off, the stock's up over 8%, almost 8.5% this morning. They beat by 6 cents. They did it on higher revenue. They're still spending a lot of cash on their build up, but their cloud revenue and AI revenue continues to grow. So that is positive. And then like after the bell today, you got Restoration Hardware, or ticker RH. It's now known as RH Inc. Their EPSs were a loss of 9 cents, and the expected move is 15.55%. This is interesting because remember the CEO at last quarter when they released was right after Liberation Day, and he hit the roof and he started cursing on the conference call. Really nosedived the chairs. We'll see if he's able to hold his emotions in check today after they release it on their conference call. Then there's Adobe, ADBE, Apple David, Boy Edward. Their EPS is $1.64, and their expected move is 7.35% when they release this afternoon, Emily.
Bill, we will keep an eye on those. And as you mentioned, you're not only getting the data, being able to see the transcripts from those earnings calls can really help gather what the stock may or may not do next. That is RH is a good example of that one. And then speaking of data coming in, when it comes to economic indicators, there are some important ones on the docket today. And, the CPI was released yesterday. So, Bill, give us a look at everything we should be watching when it comes to economic events.
Well, 8:30 a.m. you got jobless claims coming out. Market's expecting a print of 246,000, which would be slightly improved from last week's 247,000 print. I think it actually comes in lower. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes in a lot lower than that, but we'll see at 8:30 this morning. But also at 8:30 this morning, we get the PPI final demand. Now, markets are anticipating a 0.2% month over month increase in May, which is rebounding from the 0.5% decrease in April. On an annual basis, the PPI is expected to accelerate to 2.6% from 2.4%. Listen, a hotter PPI could dampen the market's idea for a fake rate cut expectations. So we got to be cautious on that. Then there's yesterday's CPI, which it came in a little hotter than last month, but it was lower than expectations. So that was actually positive, and that was actually interesting that it came in lower than the expectations because that was not expected at all. But that's what I have for you in terms of economic reports today, Emily.
Bill, you still have that information from yesterday on hand, along with what you're anticipating looking forward and what those expectations are, because you have an economic alert. And that's why you're able to balance all of that information at once. And speaking of balancing information, along with everything we've already heard throughout the show, you're also looking at things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You're looking at your stocks grouped together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Yeah, just a note, I have more than one economic alert running at all times. But doing a quick data check, listen, I got 8 Dow stocks higher, I got 22 lower. I'm looking at my FANG stocks, I'm seeing, a weakness really across the board in the FANG stocks. Apple is showing a slight gain, but everything else is lower. You're looking for some of the news behind the tape, like Amazon. They're asking the court to scrap EU tech label, arguing that it poses no systemic risks. Meta Platforms, they poached a DeepMind researcher for their superintelligence team. This guy used to work at Google. It's going to cause a little friction between those two firms. Tesla, Trump is going to sign a resolution today that's nixing California's EV rules. Yeah, I think we might hear something negative coming out of Musk today on Trump, but we'll have to wait and see. What else do we have? Dow Jones 30 stocks. Microsoft is developing a version of AI Copilot for the Pentagon. Saudi Arabia started its AI build out and they tapped Cisco and AMD for its cloud project. And Boeing. Boeing's trading lower. Boeing is down, 7.43% after that 11-year-old Boeing airplane crash in India. Here are the facts that we know. It happened in India, not in the US. So these crashes always seem to occur in India. So something's odd there. It was an 11-year-old plane. We don't know about the maintenance record. We don't know if the pilots, continue to be updated on the latest cockpilot navigational instruments. So there's a lot of variables here that we don't know about. The sell-off in Boeing shares are a little much. I still think that next week we have that Paris Air Show. So, that hopefully that this doesn't affect their ability to obtain new orders, but we'll have to wait and see. Then we're talking guidance news. We got Oracle, ticker ORCL. They're guiding for Q1 to come in at $1.44 to $1.48. Street estimates $1.48. We got a bunch of shareholders meetings today. Five Below, ticker FIVE. They're having a shareholders meeting at 9 a.m. Hims and Hers, that's ticker HIMS, HIMS. They're having a shareholders meeting at 2 p.m. And Sweet Garden, ticker SG, or Sweet Green, ticker SG, Sam Grace. They're having a shareholders meeting today at noon. And that's what I have for you in terms of news in the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what do you have for us today?
AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, Apple, Michael David. Listen, AMD has an AI event today. It starts around noon. And Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, is going to be speaking. I mean, you look at yesterday's call volume, 298,000 calls traded versus 139,000 puts. That's pretty good. And you look at the open interest, 2.1 million versus 1.6 million. And you look at the major brokers, they're all positive on the stock. They've been raising price targets all quarter long. So, listen, the entry price is everything, and the market's weak. So, it's going to sell off a little more in the beginning of the session. So I want to get in under $119. I'd like to get in at 118.50. I don't think it'll go that low, but I'm looking at the 119 level as a key support level. So around there, 1850 to 119.10 kind of is where I'm thinking. We'll have to wait and see how the market opens, but I do think we're going to see some positive activity in AMD this afternoon, and it'll all be due to this AMD AI event that's occurring today, Emily.
Bill, looking at that entry price, looking at the data, and looking at the news cycle, making your pick of the day. And coming up, we will do a recap on yesterday's pick of the day and see how that one worked out. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, what do we got here? Listen, we know shares of Boeing are down in the pre-market after that Air India aircraft that crashed. Amazon must face authors' lawsuit over audiobooks distribution, a judge ruled. Micron and the Trump administration announced expanded U.S. investment in leading edge DRAM manufacturing and research and development. Oh, that's why the stock's not falling. Oh, Trump's out there saying his big, beautiful bill will grow the economy like nothing ever before. He always uses the same phrases. Here's the thing. It's going to be a different bill than what the House put together. The Senate is making some real changes. So the idea of him being ready to be signed by the 4th of July, it's just not going to happen. It's going to be late August. Let's see what else we got. BNTX, BioNTech, they're acquiring CureVac in a deal worth $1.25 billion. Oh, RFK Jr. names 8 new directors to the CDC vaccine advisory panel. The first meeting is scheduled for June 25th. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Thursday, let's take a look at yesterday's pick of the day, which was Rigetti Computing. Now, this was a quantum play, and you did mention there was sort of unusual volatility in the stock yesterday. You made this pick following the CEO's comments about quantum moving forward. You had an entry point here. Stock had a nice little run yesterday. Bill, how did your call work out?
Worked out well. I mean, look at the facts. The stock opened up at $12.19. Then it fell down to $11.86. Remember, I set an entry point of $11.90. Then it ran. It hit a high of $13.59 before closing at $12.52. And this morning, you're looking at when I look at the stock this morning, it's trading $12.70. So listen, if you got it at the opening price, if you got it at my entry price, either way, you made your 1%. So, Rigetti Computing, RGTI was a winner yesterday, was a winner, Emily.
A win there, Bill, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's AMD pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow to end your trading week at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Vani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.